Hello everyone, tonight on the program, Ghana Revenue Authority embarks on distress action targeting oil marketing companies which have failed to honor petroleum taxes and levies.
The arrangement you should do should be satisfactory to Commissioner General. And that is one of options available to those indebted to Ghana Revenue Authority to pay their taxes.
Also ahead, we hear from banking and finance expert Dr. Benjamin Amma, who has justified government's move to secure 170 million euros for the establishment of the Development Bank Ghana.
Once we have a business case and want to transform the economy, we're going to have a good governance system in place to make sure that the funds are used and utilized well.
And Vice President Dr. BAWUMIA commissions 77th 1D1F project. We'll have a report from Nano Foods Limited, a pineapple manufacturing factory at Nsawam in the eastern region.
There has been no government in this country with a clear industrial vision and strategy but for the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
This is Business Live. My name is Darryl Kwao. Details in a moment. Welcome back. Tonight we're expecting the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to address a press conference on the 170 million euros secured from the European Investment Bank for the establishment of Development Bank Ghana. We'll bring you that presser live as and when we have the feed. But I want to start with the story. The Ghana Revenue Authority's Debt Management and Enforcement Unit has resumed its debt distress action to recoup accumulated petroleum taxes and levies from some oil marketing companies. Thursday morning's operations began at the premises of Great Petroleum, which is owing in excess of 1.2 million cedis. The team locked up the premises of the company after several attempts to get them to make part payments failed. Here's a report.
The action by the Ghana Revenue Authority is aimed at getting all oil marketing companies to pay back levies and taxes charged on every litre of fuel sold to consumers. After the operation by the team, all defaulting companies locked up by the GRA have an ultimatum of 10 days to pay a reasonable part of the debt or risk having their properties auctioned to defray the debt. Here is Chief Revenue Officer Nathaniel Ni Okanye explaining the process.
But now, as and when we see it, the 10 days starts from today. Once it is attached, the 10 days starts from today. So if after 10 days, these ones are auctioned, and we see, and Ghana Revenue Authority has not recovered all the money, wherever we see or we get any asset, it will also be attached, auctioned until we are able to recover that amount. The arrangement you should do should be satisfactory to Commissioner General. And that is one of options available to those indebted to Ghana Revenue Authority to pay their taxes. It is relaxed sometimes if you are in difficulty. Come and explain yourself and how you will pay. And it should be satisfactory. It is not that you owe and you give Ghana Revenue Authority between 5 to 10 years. That means it seems you don't want to pay.
Mr. Okan used the occasion to break down the debt owed by the defaulting OMCs and the accumulated period.
Santor Limited, that is owing 57 million 398 Ghana cedis, 141 Ghana cedis, 90 pesos. Then we have Great Petroleum that is owing 1,253,969 Ghana cedis. Life Petroleum is owing 1,149,946 Ghana cedis, 78 pesos. Sawi's Petroleum, 5,122,000 387 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos. And we have Sonidom where we are now. Sonidom is owing 862,702 Ghana cedis, 13 pesos.
At Soweto in Accra, the Solwis Petroleum Filling Station escaped the action due to a transfer of ownership letter approved by the National Petroleum Authority to new managers.
Now, Vice President Dr. MAHAMUDU BAWUMIA says industrial transformation of the country remains top priority for the administration. Now, he says government is working towards adding on to the 76 functioning factories it has partnered private entities to put up as part of government's One District, One Factory policy. The Vice President said this at the commissioning of the 77th 1D1F project, Nano Foods Limited, a pineapple manufacturing factory at Insawam in the Eastern region.
We look back in history and we realize that one of the keys to economic development, sustainable development, job creation for our youth is industrialization. It is the way you create quality jobs. And this is why Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo embarked on this One District, One Factory initiative. Since the government of President Nkrumah, our first president, there has been no government in this country with a clear industrial vision and strategy but for the government of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We have been seeing closures of factories, but under Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we are seeing openings of factories. I can confirm that government's other efforts on transforming the economy through agriculture is beginning to yield much fruits. As the world continues to navigate the challenging times presented by COVID-19, it is important that we explore all the opportunities in the traditional sectors of the economy to accelerate the economic transformation agenda led by His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Where the actual production of the pineapple juice takes place, and with a workforce of about 100 hands, it is the expectation of the managing director of this new factory, which falls within the One District, One Factory initiative of the administration, to employ at least some 300 workers once they prepare to begin shipment of their produce to Europe and the Americas.
Not only pineapple. You will see that we have canned mango, we even have canned zomi, palm oil, and we do not doubt that we should be able to preserve and also export garden eggs, snails, and even experiment with plantain and yam in cans. With the opening up of the African market under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that's the AFCFTA, by the reduction of tariffs, we eagerly look forward to making our brands of pineapple products a bestseller on the African continent. We are especially looking at markets in Morocco and Egypt, as well as the ECOWAS region.
We want to decentralize industrial development in this country and bring industry to the doorsteps of the average Ghanaian. We all know that for several decades, if you want to see a factory, you have to go to Accra or Tema before you can see a factory. Now, 1D1F is making sure that we bring factories into every district in our country. But it goes beyond that. It is also designed to add value to our natural resources at the base. And there can be no better example of this than Nano Foods that we are commissioning today.
You're watching Business Live. We are moving on now. Banking and finance expert Dr. Benjamin Amwa has justified government's move to secure 170 million euros for the establishment of the Development Bank Ghana. Questions are being raised concerning the acquisition of the facility from the European Investment Bank by government, which is already debt-ridden. Some analysts have also argued the NIB and ADB banks can serve the purpose of the Development Bank. Mr. Ahmad disagrees with that. He says the benefits of the Development Bank far outweighs the risks.
There's been a lot of background work, including the World Bank, to lead this initiative. And so it has come at a good time. It is good. The 170 million euros translate into about capitalization for 3 universal banks. That's about 1.2 billion. So that 170 million euros, if you want to look at it in today's terms, it's about 3 universal banks that is coming together to provide this facility. And so once we have a business case and want to transform the economy, we're going to have a good governance system in place to make sure that the funds are used and utilized well to transform the economy. Then there's a good business case for the 170 million euros to support the SME sector that is very important for the growth that we want to pursue.
I know some others who would disagree with you on this matter, but you pointed out NIB and ADB, which originally, I think, had some development funding programs. And so the other argument is, why not merge NIB and ADB to meet the same needs rather than set up a new bank?
Yeah, it's a good argument to make. However, if you looked at NIB and ADB, these are banks that have not posited good and appreciable results over time. Again, these banks have a lot of overhangs on themselves that they have to deal with. You don't want to start an initiative with institutions that have a lot of issues to deal with. You need to have that new kid on the block free to establish and have new relationship with businesses than to pump in a whole lot of money into setups that do have challenge currently. So if you are going to have a new setup to start new relationship, it gives us a clean slate to start on, to build a business case and to monitor, than to merge these institutions that have not given us so much good results and then pump new money into it that may not be turned around successfully. So for me, if you ask me, I'll say yes, it is good we start with a new setup, clean slate, with new funding, a good governance structure in place to make sure that what happened to the others in the past will not be repeated.
My final question, there are concerns about our debt situation. And so while we are building a good business case, aren't we exposing ourselves to certain risks?
Definitely, banking is the business of managing risk. So once you go into banking, you are exposing yourself to some level of risk. On the other hand, if you successfully manage the risk inherent in the banking activity, it caters for all the fears that we are having. The most important thing is that if you go through the Act clearly states that you need to have professionals, good governance structure to monitor and then to supervise the activities of these development banks. If we can do that and we can recover, then I don't think we should be so scared about how much debt we are contracting from this particular initiative that we are getting ourselves into.
Right, the thoughts of Dr. Benjamin Ahmad there. Just to remind you that we're expecting the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to address this particular issue about the acquisition of 170 million euros for the Development Bank Ghana. We'll bring you that press conference live when we have the feed. But banks are expected to procure verification devices in order to make Ghana cards acceptable for transactions. That's according to the National Identification Authority. In an interview with its Executive Secretary, Professor Kenneth Atefa, he said plans are far advanced to ensure that the cards become acceptable by banks and telecom networks by December this year.
The verification platforms, which will enable the banks and the telcos to verify the identities of people who present the Ghana card, has been built. It has been tested or piloted with Cowbank. It has been found to be working perfectly. It now remains for the banks and financial institutions and the telcos to procure the devices, the verification devices, which will make the verification system possible. The platform is built and is ready, and the conversations with the Bank of Ghana and with the Ministry of Communications are at advanced stages, so that all the financial institutions and the banks and the telcos will be able to procure these devices so that we are a go. But because the procurement of these will inevitably take some time, it is envisaged that there will be a certain moratorium, a certain period during which they must all come on board. So that is being done, and I am confident that, as the Vice President has announced, latest by December 31st of this year, all these banks and non-banking financial institutions and the telecom companies will be on board.
So banks will soon communicate to customers about the usage of only the national ID card as a primary source of documentation for transactions. This follows discussions between the banks represented by the Ghana Association of Bankers, the National Identification Authority, and the Bank of Ghana. Earlier, I spoke with John Ewa, who is Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Bankers. I asked him first about reports that banks were refusing to accept new voters' ID.
I think it's the wrong impression that has been created out there. Banks are not refusing to accept new voters' ID card for banking transactions. The issue is, why do we take ID? We take ID so we can identify the person, the bearer. Unfortunately, the infrastructure that enables us to authenticate the new voters' ID card has not been updated with the new records.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, banks don't have access to that facility. It is a third-party arrangement between the Electoral Commission and a company that is called GVIVE. So it is GVIVE that must work with the Electoral Commission and refresh that database and provide the link to the bank, so that as you present your new voters ID card to your bank, the bank can have a facility to authenticate that you are who you say you are. Banks stand ready as soon as that information is available. New voters ID card will be accepted for banking transactions.
So we are settling on the national IDs. How safe and convenient would that be?
As far as we've seen thus far, and the pilot program that has been run with CalBank, and all the security features that are available in the Ghana card, we have every reason to believe that it will be safer. There is nothing like a zero risk in anything, and so we believe that it will be more safer than what we have as driver's license and all the other forms of IDs. This one has a lot more embedded authentication functionalities. It has facial recognition capabilities. It is biometric, and we can connect directly to the NIA's database to also authenticate. And it has other functionalities that I'm sure in the course of time, NIA will let the public know about. So to that extent, I'm not an expert in this field, but to that extent, and to the extent that all these security features have been embedded, we have a reason to believe that it's safer.
Okay, final question. What timelines are you looking at?
It's difficult to be explicit about timelines and be emphatic about that, because there's an ongoing process which has yet to start, and that is an integration process. And while we're going through the integration process, there must be, as the Executive Director or the Secretary, Professor Tifua of NIA, Professor Tifua mentioned, there is also the leg of procuring the biometric devices that we will use to authenticate the bearers of these cards who present into a banking environment. So it's difficult to say it is A or B, but in the interim, the workaround we found, working with NIA and Bank of Ghana, is while we are working on making sure that that comes on stream, the available processes for identifying our customers will be in force. Tentatively, we're giving ourselves until the end of this year, which to allow for the parallel run. And I'm sure by the end of this year, I'm sure we would have made significant progress in onboarding NIA and the Ghana card, and then perhaps these other cards will fizzle out.
And you're watching Business Live. We are taking a short break. We will be right back. You're watching Business Live. We're taking you to that press conference we've been telling you about. The Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta addressing a press conference on the 170 million euros secured from the European Investment Bank for the establishment of Development Bank Ghana. Take a listen.
Country, it is a non-deposit taking wholesale bank. DBG will neither give retail nor direct business loans at the former Bank for Housing and Construction, NIB, ADB, and the like. It will rather provide funds to the existing commercial banks and non-bank financial institutions which qualify to provide long-term lending and other innovative products that are presently lacking in the system. The bank will therefore complement and strengthen the operations of existing financial institutions. It is important to state that since independence, this is the first time we're establishing a bank of this nature. It is a model along the lines of the German Development Bank, KfW, which played a pivotal role in the post-World War II reconstruction and transformation of the German economy. And I believe that the destruction that the COVID has done to Ghana and other African countries, this is the type of intervention that is required. Through DBG, government will be able to further strengthen its support to the private sector to spearhead economic growth and transformation. DBG is an instrument to ensure long-term finance to the private sector on a sustainable basis and also build our infrastructure. Government therefore expects DBG to be a financially sustainable institution that is able to raise long-term funds from the domestic and international capital markets and from international financial institutions without burdening the country's balance sheet. To this end, government is taking pains to ensure that DGB has a strong governance structure of professional and independent board and management. A process to select the board and management on a competitive basis is currently underway. Work on DBG started in 2018 with a task force of industry experts established by government to recommend the best approach to establish a modern and dynamic development bank. Based on the recommendation of the task force, government decided to set up DBG as a new non-deposit taking wholesale bank under the Companies Act. DBG as a wholesale and non-deposit taking bank requires no branch network and minimal staff. It will therefore be very costly financially and in terms of the closure of branches and employment loss to try to convert an ADB or NIB into a viable modern development bank. The advantage we foresee of a greenfield approach is that one gets to start from a clean slate with no legacy financial governance and other issues. This allows us to focus on the future and move straight into setting up DBG equipped with modern and sound design principles. The greenfield approach also has the potential to attract more private and international institutional capital, as we have witnessed with EIB's €170 million facility. It also government's plans to attract other shareholders, both domestic and international, so as to increase DBG's capital base and also reduce the government's share over time. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, despite the unsuccessful experience in Ghana and many African countries, development banks have been instrumental in driving economic transformation elsewhere. Many industrialized countries have development banks or similar institutions to provide investment finance to their SMEs or to encourage investment in new and promising but risky economic activities. Examples of transformational development banks include Japan Development Bank, Korean Development Bank Singapore, Brazilian Development Bank, KfW from Germany, and Development Bank of Nigeria. As I indicated in my last press briefing on 9th May 2021, the bank will be launched in July 2021. We are aiming to establish DBG with an initial Government of Ghana equity contribution of $250 million, of which $200 million has already been paid. We aim to increase DBG's lending capacity by raising additional funds from domestic and international private and institutional investors. The World Bank is providing $250 million. KfW is providing $46.5 million. We are also talking to the AFDB to partner with us in the establishment of the bank. DBG will pay back the loans that government has taken on its behalf from the international financial institutions. Government therefore sees its contribution to DBG as investment that should be paid back. All the more reason we'll insist on the professional management of the bank. As I indicated in my last press briefing on 9th May 2021, the bank will be launched in July 2021. One of the core pillars of the 100 billion Ghana Cares Obatampa program aims to achieve the following: economic transformation that requires that entrepreneurs in key productive sectors have access to long-term finance at affordable interest rates. Analysis done as part of the background technical work for establishing DBG found that in Ghana, agriculture and manufacturing receive around 4% and 8% respectively in bank lending, and only about 15% of bank loans exceed 5 years in tenor. The launch of DBG this year will address fundamental financing constraints. It will provide loans with tenors of up to 15 years with a focus on key transformational sectors: agribusiness, manufacturing, ITC, tourism, and housing. In the area of housing, we intend to look at even a longer period of financing to ensure that people with low salaries will be eligible for mortgages. DBG will be a wholesale bank lending to retail banks and non-bank financial institutions to loan lend to SMEs. Interest rates will be based on the need to support enterprises while at the same time ensuring financial sustainability of DBG. DBG will also operate a partial guarantee window and also a digital platform to facilitate factoring by retail banks for their SMEs. Government, learning from our national experience and also from global experiences regarding development banks, is determined to set up DGB so that it stands the test of time and supports Ghana's economic transformation on a long-term basis. To this end, government is taking extraordinary measures to ensure that DGB is well capitalized and has a strong and independent governance structure, including competitive international recruitment of its board and senior management to enable it to be run professionally and on a financially sustainable basis without recurrent recourse to the public purse. As I mentioned earlier, with government as an enabler, DBG should be able to go to the private market to raise a lot more money than we can do locally. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, DBG builds on the platform of government's strong economic management over the past 4 years, including macroeconomic stability, reformed and strengthened financial sector, stronger national support for private business, and continued improvements to the policy and regulatory environment. Ladies and gentlemen, our efforts to transform the economy, build decent homes, produce more of what we consume, create decent jobs of decent pay, particularly for young Ghanaians, will be in vain if we do not build a strong financial sector that has the confidence and courage to support our businessmen and women. As you know, DBG will also ensure that we have the infrastructure that is required to open up the country. And the setup of DGB is to do just that. DGB will help access medium to long-term capital at affordable rates, and I am excited by DBG and what it can do for our private sector to lead in our economic transformation and job creation under the Ghana Cares Obatampa program. Thank God for making me able to stand before you today. I give God all the glory for all He has done and continues to do in my life, in our country's life, which we should dedicate to Him as selfless service to the people of Ghana. And above all, I'm grateful for the occasion to serve under this government, and passionately so that the very best of one's God-given abilities will be given to the country. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister responsible for Finance, for the statement on the National Development Bank, which you have rightly mentioned as the Development Bank Ghana. Honorable Minister has explained the concept and the place of the National Development Bank in our economic future. He's given some clarity to the old conversation of whether or not we need a greenfield vehicle or a merger or a transformation of some existing banks, and has shown the difference in the approaches and the benefits. He's also outlined the major focal areas: agribusiness, manufacturing, ICT and related areas, home ownership, etc. And he's also been speaking to, first, the capitalization, second, the mobilization of other resources into, may I say, DBG's bucket, so that it can then stretch its hand out and affect or impact the Ghanaian economy in the medium to long term. Colleagues, it's a good time to take your questions. You just give me a wave out, get a microphone to you, and if you have any questions, we'll take them in batches of 4, not more than 3 batches, and we'll wrap up. Sir, we'll start with you if you introduce yourself. No, there's a lady behind you. Minister, with your permission, we'll be biased towards the ladies. So we'll start with the...
very happy.
Yeah, the President will be very happy with that. So we'll start with the lady, and then we'll come to you before we go around.
Okay, yeah, take this one.
Yeah, you can use this one.
I'm Neti from City TV. Many have complained of high interest rates, which are preventing most companies in the country to borrow from banks. How low will the interest rates from DBG be to other banks for on-lending to the businesses?
Yeah. Hello. Can I?
Yes, please. Go.
Okay. My name is Ben Sabute from Joy FM, JoyNews. My question has to do with the funds that the President signed yesterday with the European Investment Bank. Sorry, I didn't hear the Minister mention whether it's their equity share whether it's a loan for the country, whether it's grant, and if it is a loan, we should be able to add it to the country's debt, because you did mention that the bank will be made to pay back all loans that government will be taking on its behalf. So if it is a loan, are we correct to add it to the country's debt? And then also, I want to ask that with the operations of the bank, do we have any policy directive on local content? I ask this because we see investors coming into our space, and when they are given facilities, our locals, especially our entrepreneurs, are left out. Thank you.
Minister, may I ask you to respond to these? I know I said 4, but
they're heavy enough.
Yeah, it's like section B A-level questions. So, so please take them, and then I'll come back some more.
Great. Thank you very much from Citi. I think that the interest rates issue, has been really bedeviling for us. But I think right now, I think we came in with, close to 30% or so, and then came to 23. Now I think we are somewhere around 18%. I mean, that's not great, but you can see the gradual fall. I think naturally, as we begin to see more resources in which we are unlending to these institutions, one will have the banks would adjust because there's more capital, and we hope that the market will drive it down. But that's the whole intention of our current situation. You have a central bank, you have the government, we raise money, we are in a deficit, and so money is hard to come by. The banks then invest in T-bills, etc., and the cycle keeps going. So the expectation is that we break that cycle with these resources and allow sort of the market to bring things down. But there will be certain guarantee facilities which then really shields the banks and in a sense enables them to take a lot more risk. So I think naturally we expect it to, and that's a reason for the intervention. Joy, you talked about the loan. The whole essence of this is to create institutions that can borrow on their own balance sheet, so that government is out of it, so that then the shareholders who will become owners of the bank, are then the people that private sector is lending to. Certainly we'll have money in there, but soon you begin to see a dilution of government shareholding in such a way that that entity on its own is able to go to the capital markets without adding a burden to the country. So the more such independent institutions you create, which then lend on market basis or ensure that it is governed properly, reduces our participation, in that. So that's really what we are looking to do. With regards to local content, I mean, I think usually you have influence when you have resources in financial institutions, and so we would insist on ensuring that Ghanaian entrepreneurs are the people that these financial institutions and banks will look to for such things. And that's the whole thing about ensuring that this development, is also dictated by strengthening of indigenous entrepreneurs, as you see in Asia. And therefore, the interventions of companies like this, banks like this, will help our local banks to be discriminatory and promotional of Ghanaian enterprises. In the end, we have to build, our own country, and this will be one way of supporting access to capital, and also hopefully at lower rates. Yeah.
Minister, thank you. Colleagues, I'll call your hand is up, but I see another lady. So. So, madam, let's hear you, then we'll go to a call. The gentleman will come to you.
All right, good evening. Nano here from Asasi Radio. I would like you to respond to discussions in certain quarters that the collapse of some banks was to make way for this particular bank.
As in the difficulties that banks had, or the financial sector resolution in the retail sector, as against this development bank. Bloomberg, let me hear from you. No, it's okay. Let's hear from you. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. It's exciting to hear you talk about this thing, because you have the track record, especially in the way you work with data banks. So I wish us all the best. Sir, how much investment do you expect this DBG to inject into the focus areas, say in the first 5 years? And you also didn't answer the question my brother asked about the EIB, the stratification, be it equity, a loan, what is it? We didn't get clarity on that. And also, you say you're going to give these monies to commercial banks to on-lend to the focus
and non-bank financial institutions,
and non-bank financial to on-lend to these focus sectors. How sure are you that these banks are not going to channel this money into buying treasury bills, buying government securities?
Yeah.
And also, how do you benchmark the interest rates for this facility? Is it T-bills? What rate? Is there any benchmark so that we know that it works within a certain range, given it's a long-term facility? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eko. There's a gentleman here. Oh, you're here. All right.
Thank you. My name is Maxwell. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to find out.
Maxwell, whom do you work for?
Daily Graphics.
Okay.
Thank you. One of the concerns we have is long-term funding, which this is attempting to address. And we have similar initiatives that aim to also address this. One of them is the Exim Bank. We've had ADB, NIB trying to do similar things in the past. And this is the latest initiative. So the question is, what is it that this development bank is going to do new that the other initiatives haven't achieved? And what lessons have we learned from the previous initiatives that we are going to apply to this, that we can be assured that at least it will help correct some of the inefficiencies, so to say, in the previous initiative? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister, we're in your hands.
Great. Thank you. Really great questions, and thank you for that. As I say, radio, I'm trying to move into a very positive spin for the country as to where we are going, and see whether we can rid ourselves of some of the cynicism that has pervaded us. But the issue of even the nature of the development bank is just so different from what the retail banks that the Bank of Ghana had to close down. And so it's difficult to align it, except there's some sinister motive that somebody had. But let's remind ourselves that the AQR, the Asset Quality Review documents were done in 2015, which indicated, that these institutions were literally bankrupt, and it was really the courage of the president and really the professionalism of the central bank that took the bull by the horn and said, let's clean this up. And really, when you see how the banks have performed over that period, I think there's a lot more confidence in them. And also the idea and an area of having 4.6 million depositors' money saved, is incalculable. So I think we should just support with that reality. But then the question still remains, that in the financial architecture, there's really no long-term financing. And it takes a while for interest rates to come down. So the president, in his wisdom and cabinet, then decided that let's intervene with a KFW type initiative, which then is able to get support from government, but essentially looks outside to be able to raise the type of capital needed for much longer term than Exim Bank, etc., which then feeds your financial institutions, so that they may be able to take more risk, and that the interest rates will come down. So the EIB facility, for example, is a 5-year grace period, 15 years, and therefore 20-year tenor, and indicative interest rates of almost just 0.5%. For that period. So you begin to see the type of capital that we hope to attract going forward, which seeks to inoculate, the problems that we have, access and cost of capital. Then you have the issue of why it will not be an ADB or an NIB, and clearly, the migration of those institutions into retail and their need, therefore, to raise money from depositors, change the tenor of what development banks should be, and that is what we are going to stay away from. So you've heard me insisting on governance and professional management and a global reach for personnel and board members that will run this, to make sure that we remain a KFW or a Japanese bank or of that nature. So we are very confident about where we are going. We've strengthened the retail institutions, so we don't need to be a retail institution, and we'll have the appropriate capital to be able to inject into the country. In terms of sort of benchmarking rates and being sure that they lend appropriately and not buy government securities, certainly there will be days of reckoning. We will keep tabs of how our monies are being applied in a way compared to the resources they had before, etc., and really keep people's feet to the fire. So I don't know, I think in that, Maxwell, I think I've also kind of answered your questions. But I think it's really an exciting moment and for us. The world is also coming to the realization of the need for long-term capital injection in a different way, and I think we are riding the crest of that.
How much do you expect to inject into the focus areas in the next 5 years?
Yeah, we are expecting to, at the very least, capitalize it over $1 billion, within that period, but then you go into leveraging, and that could, enable us to have a lot more resources to bring locally as it goes into the market, to raise funds for that.
Minister, thank you. We'll take a final batch of questions, and then we will wrap up. And if there are none, then we will wrap up. Colleagues. Minister, I want to thank you for your time. We know you've had a very tough schedule today, but we thank you for making time to give us all of this information on the Development Bank Ghana. I want to thank your senior